Hello, this is the Roach Throw Shit, and I'm back to present to you another video on my channel. Bother, my green screen is having issues today of being fully backlit, and I'm not sure why. Anyway, so today I got in and I was trying to figure out what video I should do and what I should talk about. And really, there wasn't much that I felt I needed to talk about, or much that I wanted to necessarily address right away. So as I'm trying to figure out what issues my green screen's having, I don't know. Anyway, so as I was trying to figure out what video I do and what I talk about, I looked up from my computer here, and above my computer, I have hanging a copy of the Declaration of Independence. Um, about a month ago, I presented the Declaration of Independence to, was it about a month ago? Actually, it was a little more than a month ago, because it was right close to the 4th of July. Anyway, or no, that would have been 2 months ago. Oh, wow. Anyway, time goes by pretty quick. But I presented it to my family. I kind of talked to them about it. I told them that how important that document was to the founding of our country and how it came to be, and some of the feelings that I had about it. And then me and some of my children, we signed it, and then I hung it up so that I could be reminded of the Declaration of Independence and some of the principles that I feel that we need to hold true to and we need to fight for. And this is the only country that has ever been able to establish itself in the way that we did. And it is the only country that is not ruled by government, but rather the government is ruled by the people. I think that we often forget that that's the way it is. So, and that doesn't mean that our government can't be corrupted, it can't be turned against us, that it can't be used against us. It just means that the people actually do have the power in the end. When it comes right down to it, it's not the government that has the power, it's the people that have the power and the people that grant the power to the government in order for them to be able to represent us and able to work for us for the betterment of all the people of the country. I think that the government has completely forgotten that at this point, or at least a large portion of the government has. I know that all of the government on the left has forgotten who is actually in charge when it comes right down to it. Because it is the people. It is the people that are supposed to be in charge. The elite class is not supposed to be in charge. They never were supposed to be in charge. If that was the case, if the elite class was supposed to be in charge, then ultimately George Washington was the elite class when they founded this country. He was the one that could have easily become king if he so chose to do so. And he chose not to. Why? Because he honored the things of the Declaration of Independence. He honored the things that they had put into the Constitution to form a proper government. So George Washington was a great, great man. And he did us a great many things, and he could have actually decided to be king of the United States. And there would have been nobody that stood in his way. Nobody would have tried to stop him from becoming the king of the United States. In fact, there was many that even wanted him to do so. But he was a good enough man to realize that that's not what was best for the people, what was best for the people that he wanted to protect, that he wanted to be free, that he wanted to be part of. And he did consider himself part of the people. And that's one of the things that the left has definitely lost sight of. And I think that a lot of the people on the right even have lost sight of. I got a return comment on one of my videos, and I would like to thank him for the comment. That was very nice of him. But it was on the Texit video that I talked about, and um, don't worry, I will be responding to him on his comment. But what I wanted to talk about was a little bit about what he was talking about. He's talking about possibly joining with Texit and going with the Texit movement. As you might know, if you've been watching the videos here, I am against Texit. I am completely against Texit, and I tried to lay out my case fairly well there. And I guess in some ways I might have failed. And Texas doesn't like that I call them cowards. Basically, I'm pretty sure that they don't like that I call them cowards. But that's what they're doing. They're running away from the fight, and they're not near as patriotic. They're not trying to declare their independence from the United States. They're not splitting away because a tyrannical government is oppressing them. No, they're trying to split away because they don't like what people are saying. That they don't like the way the government's going. Well, that's when you get in there and you change it. That's when you get in there and you fight for it. Not when you run away. Not when you turn tail and run away. See, the problem when the Declaration was signed, it wasn't signed in a time when the colonists were just divided on political issues with the other side of the world. They were in direct conflict already about issues. There had already been deaths. And so war was already brewing, and there just wasn't a whole lot left that they could do. They knew that they needed to split away, and they knew that they needed to split away because this was not a government that was by the people. It was not a government for the people. And our current government, they don't operate as by the people and for the people. But the government itself, the design of the government, the creation of the government, was by and for the people. And because it was by and for the people that this government was created, and that's what it is still rooted in, it is still the people that have the power. See, when the United States declared its independence from Great Britain, it was not the people that had the power. It was the monarchy that had the power. The monarchy that could dictate whatever they wanted and do whatever they wanted, could tax things that didn't need to be taxed, could not give the representation to the colonies that the colonies deserved as part of the British Empire. The government was just, and that's one of the things we ought to take a look at what the king was doing that made it so that the colonists had to say, no, you can't do this. So he has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. So that means that they couldn't make laws, and the king wouldn't allow them to make their own laws and their own rules to govern them. Now, we're seeing this in some ways with Biden, but there's a fight back against Biden from many of the states already against him trying to make laws and not allowing the states to make their own laws. And our Constitution protects that, and our Constitution will win that battle. It's just a matter of, are you going to fight with the winning side, or are you going to turn tail and run, like Texas is wanting to do with Texit, or a good portion of Texas is wanting to do with Texit? Or, so, yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to be in the fight? You're not going to be in the fight? You're going to just stay and be quiet? I know that's not Texan. I think the most Texan thing to do, really, against that, is to go in and say, well, these are the laws we're following. I don't know what laws you're following. You can basically make these edicts, but you can't enforce them, and you definitely can't enforce them on the people that have decided on a different law, on a different type of ruling. And that's what Texas needs to do. They need to keep challenging the laws that are against the Declaration of Independence, against the Constitution. So the king in the Declaration of Independence, it says, he has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. So this is more going along the same lines. So if a law is immediate and pressing in a certain area in a kingdom, the governors, so we have the federal government, that means that the states, if there's a pressing problem in those areas, that those states should be able to make their own laws. See, it's written right into the Declaration of Independence. So, and one of the problems that they were having with this is the king wouldn't let those governors make their own laws. And we see that president or the current regime of this country is doing much the same thing. So I agree that this is a government that we should be rebelling against. But once again, leaving the Union is not the answer. It is turning in tail and running from the fight. You first should be addressing the country and should be pointing out the actual things that are of importance, such as this in the Declaration of Independence that said, these are the complaints that the founding fathers had with Great Britain. So because these are the problems that we had with the founding fathers had with Great Britain and with the tyranny that the king at that time was causing, then we should be avoiding them in these days. So Biden trying to overrule the governors of states on issues that are not listed in the Declaration or in the Constitution, it should be an easy battle of saying that is not a power given to you in the Constitution, and therefore it is delegated to the state, and therefore the governors of the states, the mayors of the cities and county commissioners, and the other local authorities, those are the ones that are able to rule on those types of things. They're the ones that are able to find out what rule works best for those areas, such as a vaccine mandate. Vaccine mandates should never come from the federal government. Federal government is overreaching their powers by doing that, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the federal government has the authority to determine certain health regulations, such as vaccine mandates. It's just not there. They do not have that authority. And because they don't have that authority, that power is delegated to the states by the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, the last one of the Bill of Rights, which is the most important part of the Constitution. And so really, this is something that should go to the states. If the states think that they need a vaccine mandate, then that is something that they are supposed to be able to make rulings on. The problem is even then a vaccine mandate may not be fully legal for a state to do either, because this is forcing people to get something against their will. It's mandating something that frankly should be up to the person as to whether they get it or not. They ultimately should have their own personal ability to make decisions according to their personal health and their family's personal health, for that matter. It should not be delegated to any government, and it shouldn't be delegated to any company, which means no company should be able to make rules saying that you have to have this vaccine or that vaccine or some other medical procedure. You should not be required to have any medical procedure for any reason. Those medical procedures should be completely up to the individual to make their choice as to what they want to do. Their health is their choice. Now, and that is not inconsistent with anything else that I've said on this channel. You might say, but you went completely against abortions. Abortions are different. You've got two beings, two individuals, and the rights of two individuals to consider, both the mother and the child. You have the rights of both of them to consider. And yes, I am fully recognizing a child, even in the embryonic state, as a child, as a human being, because that's what it is. It is a human being. By very scientific definition, it is a human being. So that human being has human rights, and one of the fundamental human rights is the right to life. So no other human being, even the mother, should be able to choose whether that human being gets a chance at life or not. That child should be able to have its right to life, and be able to make its own choices once it is able to make those choices. Once it has grown cognizantly aware of itself enough to actually make those choices for its own self. And then it's probably going to choose to live. And I think that that's important, that we give it the opportunity to choose to live. And yes, I am also against suicide, but I'm against suicide for a different reason, and that's because I think that it would be far better for people. You can't really punish somebody that commits suicide, right? And you can't punish somebody that attempts suicide either. I don't think that you can anyway. Those were personal choices of them. Now, that being said, I still think we should prevent them from being able to choose death and choose to kill themselves. But that goes to trying to help somebody to gain a better state of mind so that they are more willing to continue this life. So yeah, there's all kinds of complications in it, but when it comes right down to it, the base principle, especially when it comes to something like a vaccine, which has varying success rates and varying problems that it could have with its implementation. Yeah, that's going to bother me, but it's going to have to do. My green screen's just kind of glitching out over on this side. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, yeah. I'm not able to get my green screen to work the way I want it to. But sometimes things just don't work the way you want them to. Anyways, so yeah, those were legitimate complaints of the colonists and the founding fathers against the government. And yes, we have some similarities with their situation now. However, they're not in as in the same extreme, nor is there not legal ways to deal with this without having to go to war or leave the Union. And not only that, but then you leave the Union and you lose all of those protections. You lose all of that, all of the Constitution, all the Constitution. You basically lose the Constitution. You no longer are ruled or protected by the Constitution of the United States if you leave. And can Texas produce something similar? Could they even take a copy of the Constitution and completely apply it to Texas itself? Yes, they could. Will they? Because Texas, you leave And um, you then allow those in charge to decide what the actual laws for running your country are. Do you think they'll actually implement the same principles that the United States Constitution currently has? You are actually choosing to change your government, change the government that you're ruled by, and that includes the federal government that you're ruled by leaving. And that means that you choose to give up all of the freedoms of the Constitution in order to redesign and rule yourselves in a different way. That means that Abbott, if he's still in power, could simply declare himself the king of Texas. And you could move right back to a dictatorship. There is actually no real stopping him from doing that other than the rest of the people of Texas being able to revolt against him and say, no, that's not what we want. But what's going to stop him from wanting to do that or from being able to do that? Especially if he's actually got control of your military in Texas or the military that you will have inherited that you'll be able to claim for Texas. If he's got control of all of the police force, if he's got control of all of the legislatures, and he could easily move it in that direction slowly too, simply by saying, okay, well, now that we're separated, the first order of business is, okay, we're going to need to get better gun control. We're going to need to wrangle in this speech that is not so kosher. We shouldn't have people attacking the government and attacking our way of life so much like we did with the United States. I mean, that's one of the things that the United States allowed way too much. We need to cut back on that. And little by little by little, he can just peck and dig and scratch at your rights until your rights are gone. Texas, you run into a bigger problem by trying to leave the Union than you would if you tried to fight for the Union. If you tried to fight for the Constitution and for the rights and the things that we believe in. And I'm not talking about a physical fight. In a physical fight, the United States is not going to fight you. Especially in a Democrat-run United States. No. They're all for you splitting off. The Democrats seize more power if Texas leaves. Texas is one of the strongest and biggest Republican states that we possibly could have, and that means that if they leave, the Democrats get more power. Why would they care if Texas leaves the Union? They don't like Texas anyway. So they're more than happy to let them leave. And I don't think that's a good move for Texas. I don't think that it's the move that Texas wants to run into. Because do you really trust your legislatures, including the legislatures from Austin, who will be in that negotiating room, including the legislatures from all along the border, which they've actually improved a lot in their dealings with things, but they are still a little bit left-leaning. And they'll be in there, and they'll be able to affect the policies. They'll be able to change what laws are put into what Constitution Texas would bring up or pull up. Because you're probably going to want to develop a constitutional republic, much like the one that you're trying to leave. But the problem is you don't have the founding fathers. You don't have a George Washington. You have a Greg Abbott. Do you think that Greg Abbott is of the same type of character as George Washington? where he'll give up the power later, or maybe Colonel West. Maybe he's the guy that you're going to rally behind. Do you think he has George Washington's valor? Do you think he's like George Washington? Do you have a Thomas Jefferson there? Um, do you have an Adams? A John Adams? These are the type of people that you're going to need in order to found and establish a great nation that is protected like the United States of America is with a constitution. And Texas, though you might think you have it, you don't. You don't. And you know you don't in a lot of respects. You know Greg Abbott is not there. He's not at that level. But you also know that Greg Abbott is fairly likely to win re-election. Now, he's got some good challengers for being primaried. And my personal opinion, I think Chad Prather is probably one of your best bets. Now, Chad Prather gets in charge of your country. Well, I think he loves Texas and cares enough about the people that he might be able to be a George Washington. He might be able to serve that type of a position. But yeah, you tell me that Colonel West is going to do that. I have my doubts, but because he has been in politics for a long time, but he might. You think Greg Abbott's going to be able to do it? I have no doubts he will not be able to. He will not be able to rise to the caliber of a George Washington. And I don't think that you have strong enough leadership in the rest of the state in order to develop a constitution that compares to the United States of America's constitution. You simply don't. You simply don't have the building blocks in place to make a country like the United States did. There was a lot of others. He dissolved the representative houses repeatedly, um, and then invaded on the rights of the people. So basically, he would overrule, or basically just basically kick out that parliament and say, nope, their rule doesn't matter. This is what the actual rule is. And that's one of the things that you'll run into as a possible problem in starting up a new nation as Texas. So yeah, you're going to run into that problem. I don't think that Abbott's going to be able to say, oh well, yeah, the House of Representatives, I'll okay all of their rulings. No, he's not going to. He's going to try and direct them and organize them, and then put his stamp on whatever it is. Even West or Prather might do that. You don't have anybody in your government that I would say is perfect. And I don't think that they rise to the caliber of the people that wrote up the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. Just don't think they're there. But maybe you can prove me wrong. Then he also would call, so the king would also call the legislative bodies, so like Parliament, he'd call Parliament in to unusual, uncomfortable, and distant locations for the sole purpose of fatiguing them and making it so hard for them to actually meet the requirements that the king is putting on them, that they couldn't actually make proper rulings. See, these are all problems that you could run into when you're trying to create a new country as well. But they were actually fighting against these things to try and get those to be changed. And that's a lot of the reason as to why the Constitution is organized the way it is. And Texas One of the biggest problems you're going to have if you do try to go through with Texit is you are abandoning the Constitution. And that document cannot be replicated with people in today's age. You just do not have enough good people in charge, in power. And those that are in power are the ones that are going to make these decisions. It's not going to be the people that makes the decisions. It's going to be the people in power that makes the decisions. Back then, really, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, all of the founding fathers, they weren't actually people in that were necessarily in the power. They were chosen by their local communities to go and represent those communities. They were true representatives of the people of the area. And they took that as an honorary position. It was only an honorary position. It was a position that they got because they exemplified what the people wanted. And they tried to honor those offices. But far too many of our political leaders now do not honor those offices. In fact, most don't. These people chose to run for those positions. The people back then, they usually didn't want the positions. They didn't want to have to be the representative. They didn't want to be the one that had to go and make those hard decisions for the people. They wanted to be able to go back and sit on their farm and live out their days in luxury without having to worry about a whole lot of other complicated things going on. But no, they were chosen by their communities, by the people around them, to go and represent them and give them a chance at getting some kind of form of government that wouldn't bother them really, or wouldn't mess with what they wanted. So the people that were like, oh, well, I want to be able to sit and do my stuff. And so I want this person to go and help me because I know that that's what they want too. And not only that, but they're far advanced on a lot of the ideas that I want, or they're smarter, or they have a better way with words, or whatever it is, they would be a good representative for this area. So I'm going to vote to have them go and take charge of this. See, back then things were a little bit simpler. Like it was still got kind of complex at times, but it was simple enough that they could say, okay, well, these are the people that we want to represent us, and they'd send them in, and those people would go in and they would do the deals. That's how the George Washingtons and Thomas Jeffersons and John Adams and all of those people that I very much respect were selected to go and represent the people. When the people that were selected were started becoming people that ran not to properly represent the people, but instead to gain power over the people. That's where our government slowly got corrupted and has been corrupted heavily in today's world. So yeah, there's several other things in here that the king did that just was to disrupt the people and to inhibit and to get into place laws that just were not beneficial for the people. And that's why they were fighting against it. Now, is the Biden regime doing the same types of things, trying to enact the same type of laws? Yeah. But we have the Constitution to protect us. And if we stand behind the Constitution and we defend the Constitution, then Biden, he's nothing. He just won't be able to do anything, really. Everything that he does will just be completely torn down. It'll just disappear. Much like once Trump got in, it was so easy for him to pretty much destroy everything that Obama did. Because he had the Constitution behind him. Because the Constitution is the document that protects our rights. And if you get the people and the Constitution behind you, you're not going to lose. So, Texas, you can get behind the Constitution, you can get behind the people, which in the end, I don't think people want to turn around and run away. I don't think they really want to abandon the Constitution. I think what they want to do is they want to defend the Constitution. Now, if you start looking at it and you start looking at it that way, as defending the Constitution, fighting for the rights in the Constitution, then you're going to be right there on the forefront. But a Texit strategy is not fighting for the Constitution, it's fighting against the Constitution. So, Texas, I appreciate that you want to leave, and I understand why you want to leave, but it is a cowardly way. It is the wrong way. We do not have a dictator because the Constitution does not allow for a dictator to be in control of this country. And Biden's regime will end, and it will end horribly. It's already lost favor amongst the people. It already does not have the people back in it. And that doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. At this point, he's losing Democrat approval and large swaths of Democrat approval. And that's going to hurt all across the nation. So come 2022, the Republicans will be gaining an awful lot of seats simply because Democrats are going to be very, very frustrated with the current leadership. The Democrats aren't going to want to vote because they will be completely upset with what's going on, with the erosion of their actual rights, with the erosion of the actual freedom that they enjoy by being part of this nation. And we know that Republicans are already upset, that they're already wanting to go against whatever this regime's going to be passing down. And that's rightly so. I don't think that most of what Biden has been saying has just been wrong. It's been against the Constitution. It's been against what the people wish for. Because the people don't want vaccine mandates. People don't want to have to keep wearing masks, even after vaccinated. And that's the thing, is the vaccine mandate that people are arguing against. It's not even the vaccines themselves or getting the vaccine. Like, even I support getting the vaccine, and I've actually been vaccinated. But what the people actually oppose in that regard is being told that they have to get it, being mandated to get it, not having the choice of whether they want of getting it or not. And people will get behind defending choice, defending the ability to choose what to do with your own health. So there's so many different philosophies, so many different principles that good men need to stand on right now, and women, good women as well. When I say good men, that actually means more mankind than it does just men for me. And yes, I'm sorry, but it's Old English. It's the way the Old English language works. So sorry, but not sorry. But anyway, trust in the Constitution. Defend the Constitution. It was written by good people in a good way to protect the people and keep the people in power. If we fight for that, we fight for justice, we fight for the truth, and we fight for the people. If we abandon the Constitution and try to leave the Union, or try to enact rules that are unconstitutional, that's when we're fighting on the losing side. That's when we've gone against our principles, when we've gone against our standards. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that in this country. I don't want to see that at all anywhere. So anyways, this is the Roach with Roshia. This has been kind of a deep topic, and I have taken a fair bit of time. But I appreciate you watching the show. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Comment down below. It was a comment that kind of brought me more into this and brought me back to talking a little bit more about the Texit situation. It's a topic that I might be visiting more in the future as well, because Texit is one of the topics that seems to be keep coming up and keep coming up. So I'll probably be looking at revisiting this topic every now and then. This is the Roach Toshi, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.